Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are very fortunate this evening to have a very special guest, Sami Steigman. He is visiting from New York. He is one of the youngest living survivor of the Holocaust, and to share his story with us tonight. But before we begin, I do want to disclose, and you can probably see, we are recording this event. We've had a number of people write in stating their disappointment about not being able to attend tonight. So we have decided to record the event, and the library will be loading it onto the library YouTube channel, and we will also load it up onto the CA website. My name is Grace Chang. I am the program manager of Columbia Association's International Exchange and Multicultural Programs, and this event is a collaboration between Columbia Association and Howard County Library System. So, thank you. You will also notice that we have provided some index cards and pencils on your chairs if you would like. If you have any questions for Sami, you can write your questions on the index cards. The library staff will be picking them up, and after Sami speaks, then I will then read the questions during the Q&A session at the end of the program. Okay? I would. He loves questions. I would also like to actually thank a few of the people that made this event possible. I would like to thank Nancy Target and her amazing team here at the library. They were able to put this event together on a very short notice and able to provide us this great space here at the Equity Resource Center of the Central Branch Library. I would also like to thank Jerusalem Hagos, who a week and a half ago, she reached out to me to let me know that Sami would be in the area in Baltimore on a speaking engagement this week, and she asked whether CA can put on an event to invite him to speak here in Columbia. So thank you, Jerusalem, for that connection. And lastly, I would like to thank Larry Schoen and his wife, Marcy. They have opened their home to Sami, and they are hosting Sami while he is here in town this week. I'm always amazed at the trust and generosity of people like the Schoens who welcome complete strangers into their home. Without them, we would not have been able to have this event. So thank you for your support. Big shout out to them. So I think we're about to start. I'm going to give you a brief background about Sami's life, and then he can speak for about 40 minutes, and then we'll do the question and answer portion of the evening. Okay. So Sami was born on December 21st, 1939, in the city of Chernovitz, Romania. It later became under the former Soviet Union, but is now what is Ukraine. And in 1941, he, along with his parents, were forced into the labor camp of Mogilev-Podolsky, and he was only 1.5 years old when he entered that labor camp. He was one of the youngest living survivors of the Holocaust. He and his family were eventually liberated in 1944 when he was just about under 5 years old. But soon after, their family was then deported to Transylvania. He spent most of his younger years in Transylvania, and in a small town in Transylvania. And when he was 22 years old, he and his family then emigrated to Israel, where he actually served in the Israeli Air Force as a mechanic. He emigrated to the United States in 1968, settled in Wisconsin. He was married, divorced, and decided to return to Israel. Then in 1988, he decided to return to the United States, choosing New York City as his permanent home. Sami has received much recognition for his work and has been interviewed in numerous media outlets. In February of 2016, he received the Harmony Power Award from the Museum of Tolerance in New York City. He also received a proclamation from the New York State Assembly recognizing him for his courage, compassion, and for his work in educating students. And more recently, in January 2021, Sami was invited as a guest speaker on the social audio app called Clubhouse. It's fairly new, but it's quite explosive. That's when more than thousands of people tuned in from all over the world to hear 50,000 people tuned in to hear Sami speak and to have conversations with Sammy on the app in a session that lasted, I think it was a record-breaking of 16 hours. And since then, he's been a regular speaker on Clubhouse. Sammy likes to call himself a motivational speaker. I think he is much more than that. He is a motivator, an educator, humanitarian. He's an advocate for social justice. I think he shares his story not only to remind us to never forget, but also to remember the history so that we can share his message of hope and tolerance and love. So please help me welcome Sami Steigmann.
Thank you, Grace, for the beautiful introduction. So, as you were told, I'm a first generation, I'm a Holocaust survivor, child of Holocaust survivors, motivational speaker, and I served in the Israeli Air Force. So I'm also an Israeli. I am probably the newest speaker, okay, in this circuit. I started to speak only in 2008, and I will tell you what made me decide to speak, because for 63 years, I felt I don't belong to first generation. I also felt that I don't belong to the second generation, children of Holocaust survivors. I am, unless somebody can prove me wrong, I believe I'm unique in two ways. Number one, I'm the only one that gives away my website. And if you have the website, some of you have my cards, I'll give to other people. But in the website, you also can download my actual presentation by PowerPoint. Okay, so nobody else does it. And the second one, as compelling as the stories of each survivor is, it is a personal story. It is not about the Holocaust. And I will do something that is totally different. And this is, I will give a brief history, how the Holocaust happened. How is it possible that ordinary German people, people from Europe, from former Soviet Union, other countries, found it not only acceptable, but required to annihilate one group of people, the Jewish people. I will also talk about, very importantly, about the connection between the Holocaust and the State of Israel, the importance of the State of Israel to the Jews in diaspora worldwide, and very importantly is also the importance of using the proper words. And the reason I'm saying that is because something that Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda under Hitler, said that is very actual today. A lie told long enough becomes truth. Okay. And my mission in life is an acronym of a Hebrew word which means truth. And this is emet. So, this is to educate the next generation, to motivate them to be the best that they can be, to empower them to become upstanders. All the tragedies in the world, Holocaust, genocide, happened, okay, because the world stood by and did nothing. Okay. And the fourth one is also I teach them about tolerance. Tolerance means different things to different people. For me, it means accepting other people's opinion, other people's culture. I use also another word for it, and that is respect. Respect for oneself, respect for other people. I am extremely happy here that I see it's a diversified group of people. I also am very happy that I have some very young people, which is very, very important to me, because I firmly believe that they are going to make a better world, a kinder world, and they are my future, hopefully our future. Okay. Let me, like I said before, my focus is not my story. Obviously, you will hear my story, but after I tell you the, let's call a spade, a brief history, okay, of the Holocaust, how it started, then within that context, my story will have it will be more meaningful. Uh, the Holocaust did not start when most of the people believe. It started, I would say, slowly, step by step by step, until it reached a point of no return. And I will start with the end of World War I. At the Treaty of Versailles, there were three punishments against Germany that they took away from the Germans their national pride. Number one, they had to return all the occupied land. They had to demilitarize. They could not have an army. Okay? And number three, they had to pay reparations to all of the countries that they fought against. And that caused inflation. And very few people know what happened in Germany, why the people were so desperate, and at the same time, the conditions that allowed a person like Hitler to come to power. One of the problems that we have, okay, Israel and other countries, when there's coming an anti-Semitic group of people, people that hate or something, we don't react immediately because it's, they're too small. Whether you know it or not, I like to engage people. I'm going to ask you, when Hitler started his Nazi party, how many members did he have? 6. Nobody paid attention to him. That's what I'm trying to say. We don't react immediately. So that is one of the issues. Now, I'm going to ask you, okay, in 1917, $1 was worth 4 German money. At the height of the inflation, 1923, how much was $1 worth? Good. I'm glad that you're sitting. 1 trillion. You could have a wheelbarrow full of paper money. You could not even buy a newspaper. Nobody wanted that money. Okay? They used that money to warm themselves in the winter. So when Hitler said something that's very important, and he said, German people, I know why you're suffering. And as you know, when things are going bad, you always have a tendency to blame circumstances or other groups of people. He said, the German army did not lose the war. We were betrayed. We were stabbed in the back by the communists. The communists came first because everybody was afraid of them, and by the Jews. The Jews were hated. So let's go forward. Okay, when they came to power, believe it or not, was their goal to murder the Jews?
No,
What was their goal?
to expand Germany as much as they could.
Part of it? No, but their goal was actually they have a Germany free of Jewish people. Juden frei. Now, keep in mind, number one, you have to understand why what happened in Germany is so important. The German people, even today, I was in Germany, and even today, are law-abiding citizens. So, for instance, to give an example, 65 miles an hour here in the United States is a benchmark. You start. Okay, in Germany, it is the speed limit. So, what happened is, why would the Jews want to leave on their own? Number one, they fought for Germany in World War I. They were assimilated. They considered themselves Germans. Okay? Why would they leave? So what happened is, in 1935, they came out with the Nuremberg laws. And they made life for the Jews very difficult. So number one, they took away their citizenship. They put them in ghettos. They isolated them. At the same time, doctors could not practice medicine. Teachers could not teach. Children could not go to school. Could not practice, could not participate in sports. So difficult, times were so difficult. And at the same time, according to the Nuremberg laws, the German people were supposed to distance themselves and not be friends with their previous former Jewish friends. Because it was the law, and that's difficult to understand, the Germans felt patriotic not talking to their former friends. And everything starts with words. Words lead to good action, positive, negative action. So the interesting part is they were not yet violent. Obviously, they isolated them, they made them feel unwelcome and everything else. And there was an issue that the Jewish leaders told the Jews, don't leave. This is the most enlightened country in the world. It can't get any worse, and we know what happened eventually. However, the violence started, if you know it or not, when? Thank you for being honest. One more.
Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht. That is correct. November 9 and November 10. That was the first time that the Germans actually became violent. Okay, they murdered over 100 Jews. They destroyed about 7,500 synagogues and stores. And at the same time, they put in prison 30,000. Not in prison, in camps. The interesting part is, okay, what was the first concentration camp in Germany? Starts with the letter D. Dachau. But the funny part was, they did not target the Jews. They targeted their political enemies, the communists. And so it happened that most of the communists were Jews, but they were not initially targeted. Okay, so now let's go with the beginning of the war. In September 1st, 1939, they attacked Poland. But you have to remember one thing. Unlike Poland, which was annexed, the rest of Europe was occupied. Once you annex a country or an area, that becomes part of the country that annexes you. So now Poland became part of the Greater Germany. So in Germany proper, they did not want any Jews. And in Poland and the Greater Germany, they found 3.3 million Jews. What do you do with them? And that's the idea came up. The unofficial Holocaust started on June 22nd, 1942, until 1941, June 22nd, 1941, until 1942. That period of time is known as murder by bullets. The Holocaust and genocide could not happen without the help of the local people. And the interesting part is, you don't know the history, but even the Nazis were surprised at the cruelty of the Ukrainians towards the Jews. And in Ukraine, okay, they murdered 1.5 million Jews by bullets. But that was the unofficial one. The official one started on January 20, 1942. Anybody heard of the Wannsee Conference? Yes. In the Wannsee Conference, 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together to decide the final solution to the Jewish question. Among them, there was one person that was not the policymaker. He was the one that implemented it. Anybody knows his name? Adolf Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann, and I want you to understand how is it possible that the Nazis and their collaborators were able to murder in a very short period of time 11 million people. Adolf Eichmann, towards the end of the war in 1944, in only 2 months, deported to their deaths 437,000 Hungarian Jews. I want you to understand the efficiency, okay, of this one. The other thing that maybe, does anybody know how the Nazis, what they called the Jews, how they defined them? By the name of an animal? Rats. Okay, and when you use the word of an animal either to a person or to a group of people, basically what you're doing, you are dehumanizing that person, and that is a license to hurt them. They call the Jews as rats because it has nothing to do with numbers, but like Jews, they live all over the world. And what do rats do?
They multiply, they steal, I don't know, they do lots of things.
They spread disease. And by talking about it, okay, that we are spreading disease and we are danger not only to the Aryan race, but we are a danger to the whole world. That's how everybody bought into it. And I want to tell you something, okay, the Nazis were not good at propaganda. In my opinion, they were geniuses. It is okay, it's unbelievable how good they were. So you have right now a basic understanding how it started slowly, okay, little by little, until it came a point of no return. Uh, what I want to tell you is I want to make a comparison between the Holocaust and the state of Israel. And I want you to remember, during the Holocaust, people died because we did not have a country. And Yom HaZikaron, this is our national memorial day, which will come shortly, we remember the people that died for us to have a country. And at the same time, I want also to explain to you the importance of the state of Israel to the Jews worldwide in diaspora. Because of the extreme violence in France in 2015, 8,500 French Jews, okay, made Aliyah, they emigrated to Israel to find a safe haven. And very few people know that, and that's very important, especially for the young people and everything else to know this. The other thing that is also important to me is using the proper words. And I do not use names. I have never attacked anybody personally, but boy, do I attack what they say. Has anybody heard that a very famous person, celebrity, made a comment that the Holocaust is not about race? So you know who I'm talking about. And I want to tell you, I am not interested in the motive, why she said or did not say. That is totally irrelevant. I will concentrate on what she said. And the damage that she did in leaders of our country by using the wrong words, okay, is immense. Because the young people will not do the research. They will repeat it. And like I told you with Joseph Goebbels, a lie told long enough becomes truth. And this is what I wanted to understand. And the Vancy, when they came out with the final solution to the Jewish question, they decided initially to start with Europe. So they came a list with all of the European countries and 11 million Jews. Once they were going to accomplish, to annihilate, to murder all of the European Jews, they wanted to open up a museum in Prague, former Czechoslovakia. And the name of the museum was going to be the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. So we have to be very carefully with the words we're using. I'll give you another example here. Although I started to speak very late, only in 2008, I was extremely happy when I heard, okay, that 22 states require, mandate, genocide Holocaust curriculum. In all my travels, and I spoke at least, because I can speak give presentations 6 days in one day, I spoke to over 150,000 young people. In all my travels, I found only one teacher that teaches genocide Holocaust curriculum, including World War II, for a full year. A few of them teach it for a semester, mostly for a few days, and there is no standard curriculum. And I spoke in Bayonne, New Jersey, the whole district, 735 seventh graders. And for 7 years in a row. And I asked him out of curiosity, because he developed an excellent program, how many students are taking your course? And he said 50. I looked at them and said, what are you talking about? This is a state that mandates, requires genocide Holocaust curriculum. How come only 50? He said it's an elective course, which means that it's not enforced, which means the word, okay, mandate is absolutely meaningless. It's just to make you feel good. And that's why we have to use the exact words, the proper words. How many of you have heard people using the word Nazi? Guess what? There are no Nazis anywhere in the world. There are people of today that believe in the Nazi ideology. We should call them neo-Nazi. When we use the word Nazi, we are talking about the past. When you are using neo-Nazi, we are talking about the present. Okay. Has anybody heard that somebody said that there are concentration camps in the South, in this country? A leader of our country. And I want to tell you, there are no concentration camps here. Okay? I tell people not to make any comparisons to the past. It's totally inappropriate. Times were different, conditions were different. We did not have social media. The attitudes were different. But the interesting thing, if you want to really make a comparison, compare it to the DP camps, displaced people. People had to be in those camps liberated by the Allies. Okay, Americans, Russians, Australians, British. The conditions in those camps were not easy. They had to be there for 3 to 5 years. They had no country wanted them. They had no place to go. But there was one thing missing, the threat of death. They were also fed, they were also given, okay, clothing, medical care, and everything else. So the fact that a leader of our country will use something like that is extremely damaging, okay, to the next generation, because they will not do the research. Has anybody heard that somebody said that Holocaust is happening in this world? Another leader of our country. And like I told you, I don't use names. If you want, you can research it. Okay, and I want to tell you something. People have a tendency to lump together two different things. Anti-Semitism, hatred. They're two different things. Anti-Semitism is 4,000 years old, refers only to one group of people, Jews. Hate, you can hate somebody because of the color of the skin. You can hate somebody with the language, the country they're coming from. Okay, the eyes, blue, okay, black, brown, whatever it is. You can hate them for many reasons. They're not the same thing. The same thing, we have to differentiate between the Holocaust, It's a unique moment in history. Some people will disagree with me, but I'm saying it's a unique moment. It will never happen again because of the technology today, nobody will be able to claim, I did not see, I did not hear, I did not know. And genocide is made out of two words, geno, which means group, side means murder. Side is used infanticide, homicide, suicide. That is the murder of a group of people. So you have to be very careful by choosing the right words. Okay, once I told you and you understand how things are happening stage by stage by stage, the important thing for me is for the young people to see the signs of today, okay, to learn from history and to learn how to fight it, how to combat. Uh, I'm going to make one comment before I'll tell you a little bit about myself and being a child of Holocaust survivor, also about my parents. We all went through and are still going through COVID-19. I live in Manhattan. For practical purposes, I was in house arrest for a year and a half. I was not affected mentally, thank God, because of my positive outlook in life. But the only time that I went out from the apartment, okay, was every 3 months to visit my doctor, routine checkup, and once or twice a week to go to the grocery store. However, there is another virus that is much more dangerous than COVID-19. And that is the virus of bullying, bigotry, anti-Semitism, hatred, racism, and ideology. It's a virus that cannot be eradicated. It will always be there. It will take different forms. The only way that they can do it is only through education. And that is my mission in life, to educate the next generation. In this context, I can tell you my story. Remember when I told you that in June 22nd, 1941, the Wehrmacht attacked former Soviet Union? Behind them, there were special killing groups, the Einsatzgruppen. Their job was to murder the Jews and the subhumans. The Russians were considered by the Germans subhumans. Behind them, there were the Romanian troops. And the Romanian troops annexed Western Ukraine. And that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. My parents and I were deported to an area called Transnistria. In the name of the camp, like, okay, Grace told you, Mogilev-Podolsky. I was only a year and a half. Obviously, I could not work. I did not have the skill. And 1.5 million kids throughout the war were murdered. If you will ask any survivor, how come you're alive? Everybody will use only one word: luck. There is no rhyme, there is no reason why somebody lived, somebody died. The only exception is that I will make if somebody had faith, believed in God, or whatever you want to believe in, but they had faith, a number of them survived. People that had no faith whatsoever, a number of them committed suicide. So it's very important to understand that my luck was that I was never separated from my parents. My luck was that they did medical experiments on me. The side effects, I felt them every single second of my life, and I will feel them for the rest of my life. But I'm coming from a generation that is very stoic. You will not see it on my face. Right now, you see me smiling, but I'm in pain. The reason that I could not find a cure in my particular case, because I'm suffering from head, neck, shoulders, and back. But it's not localized. It's constantly shifting from place to place. And the intensity of it is an 8 or 9, Sometimes it's 2 and 3. On the average, all the time, constantly, it's 3 and 4. I used extremely addictive, powerful painkillers, but I did not like the side effects and how it affected my lifestyle. So 30 plus years ago, I decided, because I have a very high pain tolerance. Later on, if you want, I'll explain what I mean by that. Because I have a very high pain tolerance, I have decided to learn to live without those painkillers. And it took me about a year, and today I'm proud to tell you that I do not use painkillers. Uh, the third reason that I'm alive today is because not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans. The German woman brought food to the guards of the SS, so obviously she had access to the camp. After they finished with the medical experiments, a lot of people died through attrition. Disease, famine, they were beaten to death, they were worked to death, randomly they were shot. Came a stage that I was dying of starvation. And there are physical signs: big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. And this German woman had compassion for a strange Jewish kid. And she decided to give me milk. But she did not risk only her own life. That is a relatively easy decision to make. She risked the life of her entire family. People like her that save strangers, I specifically do not use the word Jews, because other people, other ethnic groups were also saved. People like her are called the righteous among the nations. I do not know her name. I was not able to honor her. However, in 2014, I was in Israel. I went to the most well-known Holocaust museum, Yad Vashem, to give testimony. And next to the museum, there is a garden honoring 27,000 non-Jewish people that saved Jews. And I was extremely happy to see a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nation. So that made me very happy, because indirectly that woman was recognized. Let me tell you a little bit about my parents. My father was an orphan of both of his parents. My grandfather died before he was born. In those days, with very few exceptions, only the men provided for the family. Unable to take care of 8 children, my grandmother decided to take the 2 youngest one and commit suicide. A stranger saved the children, but my grandmother did commit suicide. So my father grew up in an orphanage in Vienna, and at age 13, he was let go. He became streetwise. It's a different streetwise than today. And he knew to navigate, throughout the war, especially after the war, when there was not enough food to feed the population. He knew how to provide for the family. One of the things which was very important is to know who to trust, because it was very easy to buy a loaf of bread. You had to bribe somebody. That person could go to the police and say, he's bribing, he's stealing food from somebody else. So he was good in that. He knew how to provide for the family. And if you're interested, I can tell you more about it. My mother, on the other hand, was an uneducated woman. My grandfather had a store. She had to stay home, help provide for the family. Additionally, she was abused by her stepmother. But boy, did she have a heart of gold. And I see some young people, okay, and all of you know your parents many times put restrictions on you. There are times that you don't like them, but love them. There will be nobody in your entire life, somebody that will love you more than your parents. They are willing to give up their lives for you. And whether you like them or not, you do have their genes. And I took my confidence from my father. I took my sensitivity from my mother. Uh, there is a lot more that I can talk about it. But what I would like to do right now is I want to open up for Q&A because instead of me talking, okay, as interesting as it may be, I'm interested in your questions, and I hope to hear from you challenging questions. And by the way, I have a tendency, okay, many times, to ask for somebody to volunteer to answer a question. And if you will not volunteer, I will volunteer you. Okay. So, okay. Any questions so far? She's coming here. Okay. Oops. Okay. And by the way, I will stay for as long as you want because I want to answer every question that you have. And on any subject, does not have to be related, okay, to the Holocaust. It does not have to be related to Israel. It can be about it. Israel-Palestinian conflict if you want, current events, whatever you want. I don't represent anybody, so it will be my opinion and take it with a grain of salt. If you don't agree with me, God bless you. I will accept your different opinion. Just respect.
Okay, here's the first question. For every civilian watching the news of what is happening in Ukraine, what do you recommend that their response be? Where do you recommend starting?
Yeah.
No one wants to be a silent bystander, but how do we help overseas?
Okay. Like I told you before, please do not make any comparisons to the past. Zelensky, in my opinion, made a very bad decision by calling what's happening in Ukraine a Holocaust. That is not true. And being a leader of the country, and especially being Jewish, that is a total no-no. Okay. It's a very complicated situation in Poland, in Ukraine, but people are forgetting the 200-year history between Russia and Ukraine. It did not happen suddenly. If you want to understand part of the reason what Putin is doing, is you have to understand the Cuban crisis in 1961. But at the same time, Putin is the type of a person that will go to any length to achieve what he wants. He is not playing games. And Putin must be given a face-saving out. And personally, you may not agree with me, but Zelensky is asking for ammunition from the West and the US. Why? Number one, he won. He's a hero, okay? Everybody is on his side. But if he's asking for more ammunition, that means that he wants to continue the war. If the war escalates, Putin, okay, will use, and I'll guarantee you, he will probably use gas. Okay? He doesn't care. He is not the type of person, okay, that is plays politics. Okay? He wants what he wants. So there must be some certain concessions that Zelensky and the West must give. Unless they are willing to compromise and give him an out and save face, who knows how far he will go, and it's a very scary thought. I don't have the answer. The only answer that I have is somehow Zelensky and the West must come to the understanding who Putin is, and continuing the war will just be sacrificing human lives. That's my opinion.
Do you have memories of being liberated?
Very good question. As a matter of fact, I will tell you what made me decide to talk. I have no memories of that period of time. For me, it's a blessing in disguise, which means I don't have to relive those horrors every single day. And until the Eichmann trial in 1961 in Israel, the Holocaust survivors did not talk publicly. At the same time, they did not talk to the children about it because they wanted the children to have a normal childhood. Only when I started to speak in 2008, before that, not knowing anything else, I thought it was a normal childhood. But when I started to speak, I realized that my childhood was not, quote unquote, what they call normal. I knew that I'm a Holocaust survivor because from 42 people from my father's side, only 2 survived. My father, obviously, and my uncle. But my uncle was not a survivor. He was never in one of the 3 types of camps: concentration camp, labor camp, death camp. In 1991, another group of people were finally recognized as Holocaust survivors, and they are called the hidden children. And if you want, I will explain to you, okay, the difference between those camps. And is anybody does not know the differences between concentration camp, labor camp, death camp, and uh, hidden children? Anybody that does not know? Okay, so let me explain to you while I'm here. In the concentration camp, it was basically when a group of people came to the camp, there was an SS officer, many times a doctor, without saying a single word, he just pointed. One group would become slaves, the other group would be murdered right away. In the labor camp, basically, you would become a slave. And eventually, you would be killed because they did not want witnesses. Uh, this is not a personal story, but I heard from somebody else, and I do not like to generalize. But to give an example how difficult life was in a labor camp. For breakfast, they gave you a slice of bread. You had to work a half a day. In the afternoon, for lunch, they gave you another slice of bread. You had to work for the rest of the day. And in the evening, they gave you soup. And the soup is not the soup that we are used to. That was mostly water and salt. And salt makes you thirsty. Can imagine yourself. You're coming to the camp, 6 foot, weighing 180, 200 pounds. If you survive by the end of the war, you did weigh 65 pounds. A lot of them were walking skeletons. It is unreal, the cruelty and everything else. The other thing is something that very few people know. In 2013, I was completely shocked. I thought I know a little bit about the Holocaust, but boy, was I shocked. I read 2 articles, one in Daily Mail in London and one in New York Times. The Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different type of camps. Not all of them were wired. In the meantime, they found additional camps, and today the number has risen to 44,000. The third type of camp was the death camps. And here, the only function of the camps was to murder around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here is the shocking point. From all of these 42,000, 44,000 different type of camps, only 6 were death camps. Please repeat after me. Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, Chelmno, and Majdanek. The hidden children, those were the people that were hidden by strangers. A number of them lived in the forest, some of them in the sewer, and they are called the hidden children. They were recognized only in 1991. Okay? Did I answer the question? Okay. I don't know who asked the question, but did I answer the question to your satisfaction? Yes, okay.
Did the German women who fed you feed your parents as well?
Most likely, but it's an educated guess.
You're too young to remember.
I don't,
Your
I
parents
don't
didn't
remember
tell you.
because my parents did not talk. One of the things I forgot to tell you, very good, you reminded me. How did I start to talk? For 63 years, I felt I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors. I have no memory of that period of time. My parents, except telling me that from 42 people, only 2 survived, that's all I knew. I didn't feel that I belonged to them. I felt I didn't feel to the children of the Holocaust survivor because most of them were born in the DP camps. The threat of death, like in my case, did not exist. And something happened. How many of you know the word Bashert? Very few. But thank you all. But let me tell you, please say after me, Bashert, meant to be. And the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., for 16 years in a row, closed the doors to the general public for 2 days, opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, their liberators. Guess what? I never went. Don't ask me why, but in November 1st and November 2nd, I decided to go. Bashert. What happened is there were over 8,000 people in the table where I was sitting. I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, the same years, 1941, 1944. He was taken, he was 8 months old. I was taken when I was a year and a half. For the first time in my life, at age 63, I felt I belonged to both generations. That prompted me to stop ignoring being a Holocaust survivor. 2007, I joined the second largest Holocaust museum in the country, the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust in New York. And in 2008, I got my first assignment to speak to 6th graders. How many of you have spoken publicly? Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you remember your first presentation?
No,
No. But was it the best?
probably not.
Was it the most complete?
No.
I did not have a story. I did not know that I can tell a story. And I had no idea what impact I will have on such young people. Again, Bashert, meant to be. They sent me thank you letters, each one better than the other. But one 6th grader changed my life forever. She wrote P.S. Your story was overwhelming. And I promise I'll pass your story to my children. Because of her, I've decided to dedicate the rest of my life to reach as many young people as I can, nationally and internationally. And by the way, my uncle, which I believe I forgot to tell you, he was a refugee in only one of the 3 countries that officially accepted Jews. And that's why I say, please do not make any comparisons to the past. Many countries are accepting today refugees. In those days, there were only 3. Anybody knows which they were? Yes. I'm sorry, say it again? Dominican Republic. China. My uncle was a refugee in Shanghai. And the third one, Philippines. Those were the only three countries. Another trivia question I will ask you. During the Holocaust, there was a Muslim country that had more Jews than before the war, before the Holocaust. Do you know which country it was? It's a Muslim country. Starts with letter A. Albania. Before the war, they had 200. During the Holocaust, they had 2,300 plus. So that's why I'm saying, please do not stereotype, okay? And do not generalize and don't put everybody in one block. Yes.
What is your opinion on the treatment of the Uyghurs in China?
Pardon me?
What is your opinion on the treatment of the Uyghurs in China?
Very interesting. Very good question. As a Jew, as an Israeli, people would believe that I am fighting just anti Semitism. And that's not true. I am fighting hatred. And probably very few people know, but in the former Soviet Union, when the Jews did not want to be, okay, deported to Siberia or face other dire consequences, they went to the south, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, okay, Kazakhstan. But very few people know that in Uzbekistan live Muslims, and they received the Jews with open arms. But these Muslims are called Uyghur, and they received the Jews with open arms. I was asked by the Uyghur organization to speak on their behalf. And I spoke on their behalf 3 times, twice in front of the UN building and 1 time at their national rally in Washington, D.C. The first time when I talked about it, I never heard of them. I did not know who the Uyghur people are. And I like the young people, which is the problem we are having today. Okay, they don't do the research. I had to do the research. And I found out that in China, the Uyghur people are recognized officially as a minority, among other 49 or 50 other minorities. However, about 2 years ago, they started deporting them. And they deported them to camps. And when I was at the national rally, I told them about the story of the Jewish people in the former Soviet Union, Let My People Go, which was nationwide, okay, internationally. And I told them, you will not achieve anything unless you will be able to have United States take the lead and call it a genocide. Whatever they did, I have no idea. How they did it, I don't know. But guess what? United States recognized it. The media caught on to it. Without the media, you cannot accomplish anything. And right now, everybody knows, okay, about the Uyghur people and the genocide that is happening there. So this is one example that I'm fighting not only, anti-Semitism, but I'm fighting. At the same time, I also teach the young people about Martin Luther King. We are not united. And we have to do what Martin Luther King did. He marched nationwide. Okay? He did it without violence. And take a look what he accomplished. And that's what we have to do in combating and fighting the anti-Semitism, which is right now rampant. And I want to tell you a story. May I? A lot of the young people, and I have here somebody very, very young. I think she's in 4th grade. Raise your hand, please. Thank you. Young people believe that they don't have a voice. And I want to tell you how powerful voice young people have. Only if they have a mission and they believe in themselves. A German student, for her high school project, because of the spike in anti-Semitism in Germany, wanted to talk to a Holocaust survivor and hear that person's opinion. Okay, Bashir meant to be, it was me. In the last minute, she was told that she has only half an hour to tell her story, whatever she wanted, and part of the interview with me, which lasted over an hour. Obviously, she was a little bit stressed, but take a look what one person, a 17-year-old, accomplished with a half an hour presentation. The students, her classmates, asked her to give the full presentation, hers and, the full interview with me. The teacher invited her to give the full presentation to the teachers' conference. That gave her an idea, you know something? I have to convince, the school to invite Sammy. 2 weeks ago, I just got an email from her that they finally approved. The other thing, she decided to go on her own, to go to Holocaust Museum, and where she lives, not far away, to go to different schools, because I told her I don't come just for one day. She told me, I told her I live under the poverty line. 1/3 of the Holocaust survivors in the United States live under the poverty line. And I said that I don't have the money, I have to be invited, and the trip and whatever has to be paid. She told me, why don't you go to GoFundMe? And I said, I don't promote myself, and I will never do it. On her own, she raised 963 euros to bring me to Germany. She is right now looking for the best ticket, the cheapest one, and we are talking right now to come there, in August. And the icing on the cake, because of her half-hour presentation, the teacher said that from now on, every single year, he will take his students to visit Auschwitz. So I just use that. This is something that's happening today, now, and I use it to teach the young people the power that they have, that they do not know.
What are some of your happiest moments in your life?
Okay? What do you think? Let me ask somebody. Who do I want to put on the spot? I'll put you on the spot. Okay? What do you think about a request? A 4th or 5th grader asked me to summarize 72 years of life, obviously it happened 10 years ago, in 2 sentences. What do you think about the request? What do I think you said? No idea. Very good. At least you're honest. So let me tell you something. I did give an answer. But when I came home, I said, you know something, I'm not happy with it. There must be a better way to do it. And because of that request, I did something which I never did it before. And that's why I'm saying every question, there are no stupid questions, no stupid requests. I decided to look, what were the 3 happiest moments in my life? Number one, I knew the joy of parenting. It's something you cannot teach. It's the greatest high that anyone can have. It must be experienced. Number two, I knew hate, not from here. That is, hate is learned, it can be unlearned. But I knew it from the heart. Sami Steigman, as a human being, did not exist. I did not believe how low I could sink. I know what hate does. I was able to overcome it. I'm unable today to hate anybody. And number three, believe it or not, is being homeless. By being homeless, I discovered certain strengths that I did not know that I had. I found out that I have certain skills that I did not know about them, that I can talk, that I can have an impact on young people and other people, that I'm a motivational speaker, which I never knew, never thought of it. And at the same time, I found something that a lot of people are looking for their entire lives. And I found my mission in life. All of us have a role to play. Whether we play it or not is up to each individual. I know what my role is, and that's what makes me very happy. So here it is, a simple request that you would laugh at it, okay, 72 years and 2 sentences made me think. And that's all I want from the young people, to learn to think.
What was it like living in Wisconsin in the late 60s? Was there a sizable Jewish population there at the time?
Okay, when I came to the States when I came to the United States, I really did not want to come. When I was in the military, for whatever reason, I wanted to come to the United States. And my aunt had breast cancer, and in the 60s, that was a death sentence. I started my career. I was an accountant. I had my friends. I had my life, and I forgot about traveling. Anybody heard of something called Jewish mother? I was almost 29 years old, and she said, "Listen, you're still not married. Why don't you travel?" And I said, "Mother, I lost my interest." So she convinced my father to join her. And every time, when somebody came at every occasion, they bugged me, "Wanted you travel?" So I said, "Okay." And I like compromises. So I said, "I will compromise. I will go only, okay, as an immigrant, knowing that the quota was based on the country of origin." Former Soviet Union at that time was the most unfavorable country to come to the United States. And I knew that it will take 5 years. And I liked the compromise. I said, who knows what happens in 5 years? And my parents will get off my back. Wonderful, right? To my luck, within a very short period of time, I don't think it lasted more than 2 months, they changed the immigration law. And it was based on professions. Why they needed accountants, I have no idea. But I got right now a visa. Take it or leave it, totally unprepared, no money, low language. United States, America, here I come. And so initially what I wanted to do is I went to California. My uncle lived in Santa Barbara. So I visited him. And then I had a second cousin that lived in Wisconsin, close to Milwaukee. Eventually I settled in Milwaukee. And he promised my father that he will help me. He was very wealthy, had his own business. He'll take care of me. Have you ever heard of promises made, not kept? America, here I'm coming. Okay, so when I went to visit my second cousin, it was on a Sunday for lunch. And I say hello. He says hello. And as I want to start to talk, he says, "Shh, you cannot talk." What happened? Football season. So for 6 hours, I'm sitting like a complete idiot, not knowing what's happening. Okay, couldn't understand it. That was my first introduction to the United States. And basically, I learned English, believe it or not, through the commercials. And I was not afraid to talk. I knew that people will make fun of me, but I also knew that it was not a mean fun. Like to give an example, a group of engineers invited me for lunch, and I introduce myself and I say, Sami Steigman. And one guy says, Charlie Brown. And everybody started laughing. And I look at them. Okay. And then they explained to me who Charlie Brown was. Okay. So little by little, so that's how I learned English. Okay. So in Wisconsin, uh, I founded Milwaukee. I founded a big town with a small town attitude. And I like that. It was very cliquish. Uh, as long as you were by yourself, nobody paid attention. But if you joined any group, it didn't have to be high sec, middle class, or whichever group. All of a sudden, you became part of the Jewish community. So it took me a while to find, a group that I felt comfortable with, and that slowly I started. The other thing that I did not tell you, the only thing that I told you that I was homeless, so I overcame it by volunteering. And I used to volunteer for 18 different organizations because each organization gave me something that was missing in my life. And the other challenge that I had to overcome is I have a son, I have two grandchildren, and I am not allowed to be in touch with them. How do you remain a positive and a happy person? So I had to find a healthy substitute. And all of us have a want and a need. A want does not have to be fulfilled. My want is to go to Australia. Don't ask me why. If it happens, wonderful. If not, I have the internet. But I have a need, and a need must be fulfilled. And that is to teach and to share. So when I go to schools, and tonight that's you, okay, but when I go to schools, I tell the kids that my need is fulfilled through them. And I tell them that for the hour or the 2 hours that we are together, they become my substitute grandchildren. And I'm extremely happy and honored when fourth graders and fifth graders sent me letters and say, I'm so happy that for 2 hours I was able to be your grandchild. So we have to find ways to understand that what happened in the past cannot be changed. It's gone. There is nothing you can do about it. No sense of worry. Always move forward. And that is what kept me going, and that's what keeps me going.
Sammy, unfortunately, this is going to be the last question for the evening. How do you practice forgiveness in your life?
How do I?
How do you practice forgiveness in your life?
People have asked me if I forgive. And I said yes. And when I speak to young people, Jewish kids, if looks can kill, I wouldn't be here talking to you. And some of them just leave the room. But they are not listening to what I have to say. I forgave the world that stood by and did nothing, but not the criminals. And there is a very big difference, and we have to differentiate between those two things. As a matter of fact, uh, because my father lost so many members of the family, he vowed to himself that he will never set foot in Germany, he will never buy a German product. I felt the same way. But when I started to talk, I also started to talk about reconciliation. Intellectually, very easy to talk about. And now I'm faced with a challenge to go to Germany and to meet with descendants of high-ranking Nazi criminals. I was very hesitant. How would I feel emotionally? But at the same time, I said that I have to be authentic. So when I talk about reconciliation, I want to make sure that my head and my heart, emotionally and intellectually, that I'm in sync. And I went, and it's probably one of the best moves that I did. I found out that I have more in common than differences, and I'll just give you a brief story. I became friends with somebody by the name of Klaus, and a lot of people believed that the Nazis did not talk. They did talk, but not what they did, what happened to them. And uh, my friend, okay, he loved his grandfather. When his grandfather died, he was shocked when he went in the attic and he found albums with pictures with handwritten notes. His grandfather was part of the Einsatzgruppen. He documented everything with picture, with handwritten, what he saw, what he did. That's how I learned a lot of things about the Einsatzgruppen. And he was completely shocked. And the whole community, when they found out what their grandparents did or did not do, they became very active. They are very pro-Israel. They are fighting anti-Semitism. They are marching in all over the world. Okay, so it's a life-changing thing, and it was the same thing for me. So therefore, what I teach the young people is do not stereotype, do not judge, do not prejudge, okay? Treat each person as an individual. And from my perspective, it was probably one of the best moves. And that's why I feel very comfortable right now to go to Germany and everything else. Did I experience anti-Semitism in Germany? One time. Anybody remembers Eurovision when Netta won the Eurovision? So I gave a presentation, and after the presentation, we watched, the Eurovision, and I had a tie that had the Star of David, and at the same time, I had a pin of the Museum of the Jewish people, and it's a Star of David, and it looks like a piece of jewelry. For whatever reason, we could not find the taxi, and I had the two young women chaperones. All of a sudden, okay, we had to take a bus. And here is a big man like you with two women, and I'm sitting across, and one of the chaperones sits close to you, and the other one close to me. And the guy looks at me with eyes full of hate. Looks. And all of a sudden he turns to the girl and he says, "Who's he? What's he doing here? Is he a banker? Is he a jeweler?" The girl did not know what to do. And guess what? I find myself not afraid. And I looked him straight in the eyes and I started to laugh. And it diffused the situation. Obviously, it could have escalated. But what I'm trying to teach the young people is if you show fear, they will attack you. If you don't show fear, you may still be attacked. But the chances are that they will not attack you if you don't show fear. And that, what I try to teach the young people. But the fact that I was completely surprised. I'm not the boxer or whatever it is. So the fact that I was able to laugh and not feeling afraid, that was amazing. And it's a very proud moment in my life. By the way, I know that that was the last question, but if anybody wants to stay and has questions for me, I'll be more than happy, okay, to answer all of your questions. And I want to thank you all for being here. You were a marvelous audience, wonderful programs. This is my friend from Clubhouse, okay, Jerusalem, okay, and she is, okay, arranged for me, okay, to talk to Grace and to be invited and to be here with you tonight. So thank you all. You were marvelous, and I'm very honored. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sammy. Amazing story. Thank you for your time, for sharing your story with us.